The cell was empty. The bed was made. The door was locked. The count was complete. And yet, Sarah Pender was gone. A woman serving 110 years in prison had vanished without breaking a wall, without cutting bars, without setting off alarms. Guards stared at the cell in silence. Someone whispered, "She planned this." And far beyond the prison walls, a manhunt was already beginning. But the most dangerous part was this: no one knew how long she had been free. 2 years earlier, Sarah Pender was not a fugitive. She was a college student with long blonde hair, bright eyes, and a quiet smile. She lived a normal life. She blended in. People described her as calm, smart, polite. No one thought her name would one day be broadcast on every news channel in America. No one thought she would become one of the most famous women on the run. It began with two bodies. In November 2000, police were called to an apartment in Indiana. Inside, they found two men shot and killed. The apartment was neat. No signs of a struggle. No forced entry. The crime scene felt cold and planned. Detectives asked the same question again and again. Who would want these men dead? One of the victims was Mark Walmsley. He was involved in drugs. He owed money. The other was Jonathan Heaton. Their deaths pointed toward the same dark world. But police did not expect where the trail would lead, because it led to a young woman who did not pull the trigger. Her name was Sarah Pender. Sarah's boyfriend, Richard Hull, was quickly arrested. Evidence placed him at the scene. Witnesses talked. Stories came out. Police believed Hull fired the shots. But prosecutors said this: Sarah helped plan the murders. They said she encouraged them. They said she knew it would happen. They said she was not innocent. Sarah denied everything. She said she had nothing to do with the killings. But the jury believed otherwise. The trial was tense. Sarah sat quietly in court, wearing simple clothes. She showed little emotion. Prosecutors painted her as the mastermind. They said she wanted the men dead. The defense argued there was no proof she planned anything. No fingerprints. No weapon. No confession. But words mattered. Witness testimony mattered. And in the end, the verdict was clear. Guilty. The sentence shocked everyone. 110 years in prison. Sarah was in her early 20s. She would grow old behind bars. The judge spoke firmly. The courtroom was silent. Sarah did not cry. She did not scream. She simply nodded. And then she was taken away. Prison life changed her. Days became routines. Routines became years. But Sarah did something most prisoners did not. She studied. She worked. She became close to prison staff. She followed the rules. Guards trusted her. That trust would later matter more than anyone realized. Years passed. Appeals failed. Hope faded. But Sarah did not give up. She watched. She listened. She waited. And somewhere inside prison walls, a plan was forming. In 2008, Sarah was moved to a minimum security facility. She worked in the prison library. She helped other inmates. Staff saw her as low risk. No trouble. No violence. Just quiet compliance. But behind that calm surface, something else was happening. Sarah began a secret relationship. Not with an inmate. With a prison guard. His name was Casey White. He was married. He wore a uniform. He had access. And he believed Sarah's story. She told him she was innocent. She told him she had been betrayed. She told him she had nothing left. And slowly, he listened. Letters were written. Conversations happened in quiet corners. Rules were bent. Then broken. What started as sympathy became something more. Something dangerous. Because guards hold keys. And keys open doors. On July 4th weekend, the prison was quieter than usual. Staffing was light. People were distracted. That was when it happened. Sarah was supposed to be in her cell. She was not. Instead, she walked out. No alarm. No chase. She left wearing normal clothes. She stepped into the world like she belonged there. And then she disappeared. By the time prison officials realized what happened, hours had passed. The head count showed one missing. The locks had not been forced. Cameras showed nothing unusual. The escape was clean. Too clean. Police issued alerts across the country. Sarah's face appeared on TV screens. Convicted killer escapes prison, the headlines said. The public was stunned. How does someone serving 110 years just walk away? Investigators moved fast. They searched homes. They questioned staff. They followed phone records. One name kept appearing. Casey White. The guard was missing too. Now the story changed. This was not just an escape. It was an inside job. And the manhunt became urgent. Because Sarah was smart. And she had help. Tips poured in from across the country. Sightings in small towns. Gas stations. highways. But every lead went cold. It was as if she vanished into thin air. Then came the break. In a small town far away from the prison, police found something strange. A rental car. Abandoned. Inside were maps, cash, and a note with one word circled in red. Canada. Authorities realized the truth too late. Sarah Pender wasn't just running. She was planning a new life. And the hunt was only beginning. The hunt across America. By the time police found the abandoned rental car, Sarah Pender had already been gone for days. Days felt like years in a manhunt. Every hour meant distance. Every mile meant new danger. The car sat in a quiet parking lot, covered in dust and morning dew. Inside, investigators found maps folded carefully. Highways were marked. Back roads circled. Small towns highlighted. This was not panic. This was planning. The name Casey White spread quickly through police reports. He was the prison guard who disappeared the same day Sarah escaped. His co-workers were shocked. He had worked at the facility for years. He followed rules. He kept his uniform clean and his voice calm. Now he was the most important missing person in the investigation, and possibly the key to everything. Detectives searched Casey's home first. The house looked normal from the outside. Inside, it felt empty. Closets were missing clothes. Drawers were cleared out. A safe sat open in the bedroom. Inside the safe, investigators found something chilling. Cash was gone. Weapons were missing. And Casey's passport was gone too. Police now believed the escape had been planned for months. Maybe longer. They checked prison surveillance from past weeks. Footage showed Sarah and Casey talking near the library desk. They stood too close for a guard and inmate. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they whispered. The relationship was clear now. But how far had it gone? Investigators followed phone records next. Casey had made calls from outside the prison. Numbers traced back to prepaid phones. Phones that could not be easily tracked. Each discovery showed something worse. Sarah had not just escaped. She had built a support system. Meanwhile, Sarah and Casey were driving across state lines. They avoided highways with cameras. They stopped at small gas stations. They paid with cash. Witnesses later described them as calm and polite. One store clerk remembered Sarah smiling while buying snacks. She didn't look scared, the clerk told police. She looked free. The FBI joined the manhunt. Sarah's face appeared on national television. News stations replayed her story every hour. A young woman, convicted of helping plan 2 murders, escaped prison with help from a guard. The story spread fast. The public wanted answers. Investigators studied Sarah's past carefully. Friends described her as intelligent and persuasive. Teachers said she was focused and determined. Former neighbors said she kept her problems private. These details worried detectives. Because intelligence can help someone disappear, and determination can help them stay hidden. The search expanded into neighboring states. Police checked bus stations, airports, border crossings. Officers knocked on hundreds of doors. Each time, the same question was asked. Have you seen this woman? Most people said no. Some thought they had. None of the leads worked. Days passed, then weeks. The trail felt colder. But investigators refused to stop. They believed Sarah and Casey were still together. And that bond made them harder to catch. Because they trusted each other. And trust can make fugitives bold. A new clue appeared in Chicago. A motel employee called police after recognizing Sarah from a news broadcast. She reported a couple staying under fake names. The room was searched immediately, but they had left hours earlier. Inside the room, investigators found something strange. A stack of books about survival, and a notebook filled with handwritten schedules, times, locations, routes. Sarah was still planning, still moving, still ahead. Authorities began studying Casey White more deeply. They spoke with his co-workers. Some remembered him talking about Sarah. He said she had been treated unfairly. He said she deserved another chance. He said she was different from other inmates. These comments worried investigators, because emotional attachment can lead to dangerous decisions. Meanwhile, Sarah and Casey moved north. They changed vehicles again. They avoided cities. They stayed in quiet places where no one asked questions. Witnesses later described them as a married couple traveling together. They carried themselves like they belonged, and that helped them stay invisible. Police released new warnings to the public. They said Sarah was intelligent and resourceful. They said Casey might be armed. They asked citizens not to approach them. The manhunt reached millions of people, but the fugitives stayed one step ahead. As weeks turned into months, pressure grew on investigators. How could two people disappear in a country filled with cameras and technology? The answer was simple. They stayed ordinary. No flashy behavior. No risky choices. Just quiet movement. And patience. Then something unexpected happened. Casey used his old credit card. Just once. Just long enough to leave a digital trail. Investigators tracked the purchase to a small store in Wisconsin. Security cameras showed a man matching Casey's description. But Sarah was not with him. At least not on camera. Police rushed to the area. They searched forests, lakeside cabins, rural roads. They found nothing. But the mistake proved something important. The fugitives were still in the country, and they were starting to make errors. As winter approached, survival became harder. Cold weather limits hiding places. Travel becomes dangerous. Supplies run low. Investigators believed time was finally working against them. Then came the break no one expected. A woman in a quiet town called police after noticing something unusual. She had rented a small apartment to a couple using false names. They paid cash. They avoided neighbors. But one detail caught her attention. The woman tenant never left the apartment during daylight. Police surrounded the building quietly. Officers moved slowly through the snow. Windows were dark. Curtains closed. Inside that apartment could be the end of the manhunt. Or another dead lead. Officers knocked on the door. Silence answered. They knocked again. Footsteps moved inside. Locks clicked. The door opened slowly. And standing in front of them was Casey White. Alone. Officers rushed inside. They searched every room. Closets. Bathroom. Kitchen. But Sarah Pender was gone. A window in the back of the apartment was open. Snow drifted across the floor. And fresh footprints led into the woods behind the building. The manhunt had just changed again. Sarah was now running alone. And somewhere in the freezing forest, investigators realized one terrifying truth. If she could escape prison and escape her partner, then no one knew how far she could go next. Snow fell heavier as Sarah Pender moved deeper into the woods. Each step was slower than the last. Her shoes were not made for winter. Her breath came out in short white clouds. Behind her, police lights flashed between the trees. The run was almost over. Sarah had planned for many things. She planned routes. She planned disguises. She planned how to stay calm. But she had not planned for being alone. Without Casey, the world felt louder. Every sound mattered. Every branch snapping felt like a signal. She stopped near a fallen tree and listened. Dogs barked in the distance. They were close. Investigators moved carefully through the forest. They followed footprints in the snow. They followed broken branches. They followed instinct. This was no longer a wide manhunt. This was a narrow chase. One person, one path. Sarah hid behind trees, slowing her breathing. She thought about everything that brought her here. The courtroom, the sentence, the moment the cell door first closed behind her. She had told herself she would never die in prison. That belief had carried her through years. Now it felt heavy. A helicopter circled above. Its light cut through the trees. Sarah dropped to the ground, pressing herself into the snow. The cold burned her skin. Her hands shook. This was not freedom anymore. This was survival. Officers closed in. They formed a wide circle, moving inward. They called out her name. Sarah, it's over. Their voices were calm. Not angry. Not rushed. That scared her more. She stood slowly. Her legs felt weak. When officers finally saw her, she did not run. She raised her hands. Snowflakes landed on her hair and melted. The chase ended quietly. Sarah Pender was taken into custody without resistance. After months on the run, the silence felt strange. The cuffs were cold. The patrol car door closed. And just like that, the outside world disappeared again. Back at the station, investigators asked the questions they had waited months to ask. Why escape? Why trust a prison guard? Why keep running? Sarah answered some questions. Others she avoided. She spoke calmly, almost politely. But when asked about Casey White, her expression changed. She said very little. Casey, now in custody, told a different story. He said he believed Sarah deserved another chance. He said he lost control. He said it started as sympathy, then turned into something deeper. Investigators listened. They compared stories. They followed timelines. Piece by piece, the full picture came together. The escape was not a moment of impulse. It was a slow decision, built on trust, built on secrecy, built on emotional connection inside prison walls. And it ended the only way it could, with consequences. Sarah was returned to prison. This time, under stricter conditions. No special duties. No extra movement. No chances. Her sentence continued. The walls were taller now. The doors heavier. Casey White faced his own charges. Abuse of authority. Assisting in escape. Criminal responsibility. His career was over. His life changed forever. The uniform that once gave him power now meant nothing. The case became a lesson studied by prison systems. How trust can be exploited. How relationships can cross dangerous lines. How one decision can break many lives. Policies changed. Rules tightened. Training increased. But the story remained. Years later, Sarah Pender's name still appears in true crime documentaries. Not because of how she ran, but because of how far she got. She proved something unsettling. That even the strongest systems can fail. And that freedom, once tasted, can drive people to risk everything. Today, Sarah remains incarcerated. The manhunt is over. The roads are quiet again. But the questions remain. How close can guards and inmates truly be? And how many other stories are still hidden behind prison walls? Because sometimes, the most dangerous escapes begin long before anyone runs. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more crime documentary videos.